Toddlers are the devil. There, I said it. I'm kidding, mostly, but as a parent of a toddler and a preschooler, sometimes I have to wonder. In fact, I'm sure many parents wonder. And with this wonderment sometimes comes frustration, emotion, and all-encompassing guilt. After all, we're supposed to ward off tantrums with a smile, aren't we? We're supposed to exhibit incredible patience, love, and understanding. After all, we're often told, they're just little kids. Yeah, except that doesn't fly here. Kids can be just as mean and as infuriating as they can be cuddly and fun. And the sooner that we're allowed to acknowledge that within ourselves, the sooner we can learn to forgive ourselves and to deal with things in a way that's much more compassionate to both us and our kids. And today, I'm talking with a friend and fellow toddler mom about that and more. I'm Ariana Bradford, and this is the NIAM Project Podcast. As I've mentioned, I'm Ariana, and this is the NIAM Project Podcast, and you're listening to episode 9. So, you've got a toddler. Before we move on, just a little more book news. Beta reading has wrapped, and I am now proofreading and rewriting, as well as shooting the cover art. So, if you follow us on social media, you'll be able to see photos of this and more as new developments happen. Keep your eyes open. And now that we've talked about that, let's talk about what you came here for. Toddlers. I have one. Many of us do. And it seems that you can only commiserate once you've actually been screamed at for trying to help your kid put on their shoes when they supposedly knew how to do it themselves. It's a tiring and awkward way to live sometimes. My guest today, Sarah, is one of my best friends and a mother of a little boy, Mari, who is only 2 months younger than my 3-year-old daughter. She also helps out at a co-op preschool filled to the brim with toddlers and has had to take more classes about child behavior than I think I'd be able to handle, even if there were free drinks. This has also made her very intuitive when it comes to dealing with toddlers, but I'll let Sarah talk now so you can see for yourselves.
I'm from Seattle, Washington, and my son, Maddie, is just over 3, and he is one of those kids that never, ever, ever stops. So there are a ton of stories that I have and a ton of time that I spent talking to Ariana about what it is like to parent to a child who is like the most vivacious and outgoing child when I myself am 2 steps away from being a hermit in a cave with a stick yelling at people to get off my lawn.
A comatose hermit. Let's not forget that, because, and I can say that because I too am only 2 steps away from being a comatose hermit. Yeah, so also, not to put you on the spot here, Sarah, but Sarah, just for those of you who do not know her, which would probably be everybody listening right now, she is probably one of the most patient people I know. But one of the things that I have always appreciated about you is the fact that I have been able to text you halfway through the day like, I want to sell you my kids. Can I give you my kids? And you're just like, nope, I've already been there. I already have one. That's enough. I don't need 2 more.
It's true, and it's hard, and you have a focus, especially at this age, on how much fun they are, and they are, especially to people whose children they are not. So even good friends of mine that I know are very down to earth about their parenting are like, oh, Maddie's just so cute. And it's only the funny stories that we're going to talk about because aren't these kiddos adorable? And sure, in this like one very specific minute at the park while they are playing tag for the first time ever, understanding the rules of that game and still somehow kind of failing at it, there is an inability to be like, but 30 seconds from now, at least one of them is going to be on the ground crying and screaming, and we're going to have to leave the park in shame. And we don't like to talk about that second part, even though it is the inevitable conclusion to at least half of any outings with a toddler.
It may just be me, but I feel that there is an immediate mega guilt that comes with raising toddlers. Not only do you feel awful for snapping at someone tiny, even when they're being giant assholes, but you also tend to feel constant worry about being judged as a terrible parent. Because, let's face it, some people don't seem to understand that toddlers are, well, toddlers.
So we have a room full of these little monsters. But you also have or at least half of the parents in the classroom at the same time. And you're kind of watching parents and how they respond to their kid versus how they are like trying to rein in their responses to other people's toddlers.
How do you see that changes?
So I have noticed that you are much more likely to see that frustration, those highs and lows when they are talking to their own toddler. And I feel it myself, where I will be super positive with random girl child A, who is not mine, who is maybe throwing the same fit that Maddie might throw, but with her I am able to, very calmly talk her through it. She's not mine, and at the end of the day, this really isn't my problem, except in this 30 seconds that I need to keep her calm until her mom comes over. But then 5 minutes later, Maddie starts doing the same thing. And I'm like, you will knock this off. And we will not do this. At preschool, we will not behave like this. I found this very interesting, having a toddler boy specifically, is that I am much more on his behavior, especially when he's interacting with other toddlers, to be like, that is not how we treat people. We do not go up to our friends, especially friends of his that are girls that are his age, and move their bodies for them. We do not do that. Where to another child that is not mine, I'm much more likely to be like, hey, kiddo, don't forget our hands stay to ourselves. But with Maddie, there is, almost a sense of, like, if I don't correct this behavior, I am going to raise the next great, serial predator here. So every other kid gets don't forget, we keep the sand in the sandbox nice and low. And Maddie gets if you throw sand in her eyes one more time, we are leaving.
Little other people's kids get Barney the dinosaur, and your own kid gets
Tyrannosaurus Rex, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Other kids' behavior doesn't reflect on me as a parent, but his does. And whether we like it or not, there are a lot of people in the world who look at toddlers and then look at their parents and are like, oh, this child is, especially people that don't have toddlers. I've noticed people with toddlers do this less. But people who don't have children are much more likely to be like, oh, well, if your child is behaving like that, it must be because you have not taught them that they can't behave like that, regardless of the fact that you can't really teach a 3-year-old anyways, except for apparently all the words to Baby Shark and all the names of the Avengers. That he can learn just fine. Don't throw sand in people's eyes. This escapes him. And what kills me are these swings between this very sweet, very adorable, he walked up to me earlier with his favorite, he had 2 favorite toys. One is Spider-Man from Into the Spider-Verse, the new Miles Morales one, and the other one is Iron Man. And he always gets to be Iron Man, and I am always Spider-Man. And today he walks up to me and he hands me Iron Man, and he says, Mama, I love you so much that you be Iron Man today. I be Spider-Man, but you be Iron Man today, Mama. And I was like, oh. And then 30 seconds later, there's an absolute screaming fit because I was incorrectly being Iron Man, and they got Iron Man taken away from me.
You were incorrectly being Iron Man.
I was not Iron Manning properly for whatever the rules of this game where they were doing the splits, or I really couldn't figure, whatever it was, I was doing it wrong. So my Iron Man rights were revoked almost immediately. but this intense swing between like, oh my goodness, this is the best age. Like they can say, I love you, and they can be so open and so giving. And now you're actually trying to beat me with Iron Man because I have played the story incorrectly.
I'm going to be honest. I have a pet peeve. I don't like how, when anyone I know talks about the difficulties that come with parenting toddlers, they'll inevitably have at least one person who says something to the effect of, wait until they're teenagers. I'm not saying that teenagers don't come with their own sets of struggles. I don't doubt that they do. They're still kids, and kids exist to age us and worry us until we die. That's just life. But toddlers are a special mixture of love and rage and violence, who make up facts on the spot and immediately punish you for not making those wishes come true. And their actions come with the added guilt of wanting to fight a tiny, innocent face who really doesn't know any better. The good news? You're not the only one who fights with feelings of anger, or even a want to retaliate when your children misbehave. In fact, it's a pretty natural response.
It is, and it's the only time, you've mentioned this many times, but it's the only time you would allow another human to treat you like that.
Exactly. It is. You would not allow another adult, like if you and I were hanging out and you were like, hey, Ariana, let's do this thing. And I was like, okay. And then you were like, no, but you have to do it this way. I'd be like, okay, Sarah, I'm going home. Like, we're not gonna do this right now.
You walk away from that kind of behavior, and you can't really, to some degree, you can walk away from a toddler, and should, if you are meeting them at their level of anger. Sometimes you just have to walk away to break that, but you can't actually leave them because they have CPS nowadays, and also they themselves have a very poor understanding of what staying alive might entail, and a general disregard for all those things that might keep them alive. So you can't actually go farther than 30 steps away from them while they are screaming and throwing things at you and acting like you are the worst human being in the world because you couldn't tell them where their bunny basket was, even though they don't have a basket that looks like a bunny.
Is this a personal thing? Basket? Did that actually happen to you?
No, that's the thing. That was the thing. I guess I hadn't gotten around to telling you this story yet, but yes.
You had not.
Maddie has many baskets. He enjoys putting things in baskets. He enjoys pretending to do Easter egg hunts. So he has retained since Easter an Easter basket. It is not a bunny. It doesn't look like a bunny. It's just a little pink basket. And I don't remember, this a couple of weeks ago. He had the basket in front of him, and he turns to me and he goes, "Where's my bunny basket?" And I was like, right there in front of you. You have a hand on it. I assume you mean this basket from Easter, which is the only slightly related thing to a bunny basket I could think of. No, my bunny basket. And this went on for several minutes of him just yelling bunny basket louder and louder, and me not understanding because we have no things that might be a basket that holds a bunny or that looks like a bunny. He has never used this term for anything before until he throws the pink basket at my face. And I was like, nice. Walk away. Gotta walk away. Gotta walk away, because you cannot throw a basket back at a 3. Like, I cannot throw a thing at my child. That is not okay. No. I have no nice words to say to my child in this moment that he has thrown something at my head. So I had to take a little walk down the hallway where he sat on the floor and screamed bunny basket for like 15 minutes. Yes, I don't remember what my point with that story was, other than that, yeah. In this very particular moment, and nobody ever talks about this, but in the moment that something large and heavy has just come sailing like half an inch past the side of your face, and there's screaming and there's noise, and you are confronted with a problem you have been rationally trying to solve, and all that it has ended up in is you having a basket quartering from your face, you want to throw something back or to yell something or to say something or to somehow strike back at this, because that is our body's inherent reaction to this level of anxiousness that this is now raised to.
Exactly.
And it is hard to remember that you can't, you shouldn't, you don't even really want to generally, and to just walk away.
There's also great news for those of us who feel like we lose our tempers a lot. Or maybe that we don't even lose them a lot, but we lose them just enough to feel like we're teaching our children all the wrong things. Namely, no one gets it right all the time. Not even the experts. And in the end, this may actually be a good thing.
One of the cool things you mentioned earlier that, my son attends a co-op preschool, and part of that is a parent ed component that all the parents do to kind of help you be a better helper in the classroom and talk about a general parenting thing. And our parent educator had brought up an interesting statistic. So she talks a lot about positive parenting and, responding to your child like an adult, even when they are continuing to respond like a total lunatic or a 3-year-old or totally normal 3-year-old, one or the other. Yeah. But it was that even people who are professionally trained as in early childhood education, people who have studied and who teach on positive parenting, are really only able to actually use that behavior in these types of confrontations about 30% of the time. And that 30% of the time also happens to be about how often a child needs to see that type of emotional response modeled for them to start getting it. So we have this idea that we have to if we're positive parenters, we have to 100% of the time always respond by that script. I hear that you are so frustrated about your bunny basket, and I want to help you help yourself, right? This is how we think, this is what we want to be saying in this moment. But even people who for a living teach and write and study these things only get that right about 30% of the time. And kids will see when we do that, even if we don't do it every time, they will see the process that we are trying to get to. So those times that we don't get there, the times that you do just walk away, or the time that you yell back, I don't care about your bunny basket, and you slam a door, walking into another room, it's not the end of the world that you didn't do it in that one moment. What will be more important to your kiddo is that you come back out and you're like, okay, I think mommy and you are both much calmer now. Now let's talk about what that was, because you're not going to solve that problem in that moment. And you having a bad minute, a slip, a yell, not throwing a basket as a child, but yelling back at a child or having an emotional response back that is maybe closer to the toddler level than you might like from yourself, it's not going to break them. It's not going to ruin them. They will be fine, especially if you can use that later to say, did you see, mommy gets frustrated too sometimes.
As cute as toddlers are, don't be afraid to admit when they get to you. Don't be afraid to talk about what has or has not worked for you. Despite how people may try to make you feel, parenting small children is very hard. And the only way that we're going to feel less isolated and less confused is by talking about all of it. And that's I think, probably one of the most important things there when you're raising a kid, I think at any age, but especially when they start getting to the age where they're becoming aware of feelings. I feel like there is a group out there who kind of believes in the erasure of parental emotions. Like they feel like you should always be the rock. You should always be the unbreakable one who is like, yes, I understand that this is a very highly charged emotional situation, but I'm fine. Let's sit and let's smile at one another and talk about how we're fine. And I feel like that's kind of setting it up for you to drive yourself crazy, because you're constantly going to be denying feelings that you already have. B, you're setting it up for your kids to struggle to see you as a human being. And C, you're setting them up to become the same kind of parent when they get older, where they don't allow themselves to feel things either. And that's kind of a dangerous cycle, I feel.
Right, because we all do. And I see the same thing you were talking about, this rock, or I have seen the emotional sponge.
Right.
This idea of parenting, that you should take and absorb all the bad feelings of your child and process it for them, and then return to them smiley happiness so that they can get on board with that. And my concern with that style of parenting, one, is that it is detrimental to the mental health of the mother or the father or the primary caregiver in this situation. The other is that children, and we know this, children learn by modeling behaviors that they see. Mm-hmm. So if you don't show them what that emotional regulation process looks like, if you just take the emotions and do it for them and give it back, they don't see what emotional regulation looks like. As opposed to you getting really upset and yelling and then calming yourself back down. Because that's the important part to also let them see, that you have now calmed yourself down, that you went in your room, that you played a song, that you read part of a book, that you just took 30 seconds to stare at a wall and got yourself back. And then we're able to come back and explain to them, Mommy was very angry. That's the name of that emotion that both of us were feeling. We were both very angry. This is what Mommy did to make herself less angry. What do you think might make you less angry? What's frustrating, at least to me, about 3, where he is he is much better at identifying emotions, but he doesn't always care, which is where you get to that, like, am I raising a sociopath? Because I know that throwing sand in somebody's eyes hurts them, because I know that we have had this conversation and that in other instances you have shown an understanding of this, but this time for some reason you just cannot understand it. Like, because in the trenches of toddlers, it's so hard to remember that, like, they need to see this over and over and over and over and over again before they will actually be able to, most of the time, utilize empathy and these types of skills. So it's really heartening to hear stories about kids who are a few years older who are now consistently able to be like, this thing you've been telling me the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
I get it. I can modulate my behavior now to make it more comfortable for everybody.
You go from, and you and I have talked about this before, we've used these exact words, that we go from having a sweet, adorable little baby that, you could put down and walk away and come back and they were just in the same spot, to having what seems like a tiny demon-possessed version of the same baby you once had. And they don't really seem to care about anybody but themselves. And they feel everything. And all of their feelings come out in giant explosions. And you just kind of start being like, is this what life is going to be like now? Am I doing something wrong? What did I do? I broke it, And stories like yours and conversations like this, I think, are important to help people realize you didn't break anything. As a matter of fact, strangely enough, this is proof that things are working just fine. It's just, that's toddlerhood for you.
It is a very interesting age.
In the end, we all love our kids. It's okay to be honest with yourself about the days you may not particularly enjoy them or their behavior. Admitting those moments of imperfection, even letting them get to you sometimes, isn't failing in parenthood so much as it's succeeding at being human. And, since I'm assuming you're raising a child who will one day grow to become a human, this is one of the most important lessons they can possibly learn. The Nyam Project podcast is written and edited by me, Ariana Bradford. You can find out more about us at wearenyam.com. niamproject.com or on social media under The Niam Project. Thank you to Sarah for giving us some of her time today, and I'll see you next time.